Public Law 1975 entitled Open Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as specified in the Act. Proper notice of this public meeting was provided in the notice of October 27, 2009. Said notice was posted at the entrance of the Board of Education offices, mailed to the Nutley Sun, Star Ledger, North Jersey Herald News, and the Nutley Journal, mailed to the Nutley Township Clerk, posted on the district website. This is an official meeting. Please rise for a moment of silence and reflection. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Francola, Mr. Cook,
Here.
Mr. Mascartola,
Here.
Mr. Riley,
Here.
Mr. Rogers,
Here.
Mrs. Russo,
Here.
Mr. Sauter,
Here.
Mr. Sposato,
Here.
Dr. Casal.
Here. Before we move our agenda, we have some very distinguished guests this evening here with us. And Mr. Rogers, I'd like to turn the meeting over to you at this time.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we've invited some of our veterans in town to give them the opportunity to accept a presentation from the school board. You know, it was Ronald Reagan in a speech years ago said that, actually he asked the question, how do you really thank veterans? How do you really thank those who have put their lives on the line, who have handed us a nation that we today can enjoy? Just so happens that on September 11, 2009, we had our homecoming football game. It was a cold, windy, rainy night. I remember that. And the call went out for people to step up and to participate as an honor guard during that evening. And when the call went out, our firefighters and some of our police officers responded. And so did these veterans who sit here tonight. So we want to express our appreciation for stepping up to the plate once again for your fellow Americans. And I'd now like to make these presentations to each of you on behalf of the Nutley School Board and the Superintendent of Schools. Mr. Jack Kane. Jack, what service, what branch?
U.S. Army.
Jack Kane, U.S. Army. Fred Penaranda. Fred, what branch?
Army.
Fred, United States Army. Darrell Root. Darrell.
Army.
Army. Dennis Stallinger.
Army.
Army. Howard Intriago. Intriago. We know you're in the Army. Just got back from Iraq. Thank you for your support. John McGuire.
He's at school tonight.
Okay. Bob Ferrara.
Army.
Army. I have one question. Is John in the Navy?
No?
No?
Army.
Well, gentlemen, I salute you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, at this portion of the meeting, I'd like to move to the hearing of citizens on resolution items only. Our board regulations allow 20 minutes for these communications. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask that you try to stay within this requirement. Speakers may speak more than once only after all others wishing to speak on the topic have been heard. All statements are to be directed to me as the chairperson. No one may address board members individually. Please be reminded to be on your best behavior and always state your name and address before you speak. So if anyone wants to be heard on the resolution items.
Good evening, Mike Russo, 11 Beach Street. I have a question regarding resolution item number 3. First of all, I'd like to publicly wish Mr. DeVito the best of luck in the future. Can you tell us where we are with the process of replacing Mr. DeVito?
Mike, that's not a resolution. Oh, all right. Well, we just got a bunch of applications. I think it closed today, the posting. So we will be looking at them as quickly as possible and putting together a committee to make some recommendations.
For an interim?
Interim.
BA? And then
The purpose is we want to hire an interim BA. The history has been since I'm on the board, I can only speak to my history. We went through a number of business administrators. And the process has always been that we feel as though we're under the gun to get a business administrator, and then we only have this one pool to pull from. Well, it's our intention to get an interim in place, and then that will allow us to do a more thorough search for a permanent replacement or a long-term replacement. So that's our goal, and the first step in that is getting an interim in place, because Mr. DeVito will be leaving us on the 20th, I believe? 18th, but who's counting? We'll stay if we don't have somebody for days, right? It really was like that, okay?
one quick follow-up question. Are we going to be limited to the salary that Mr. DeVito was at? I believe it was around 105.
Everything's negotiable. I mean,
Interims get a per diem rate.
I understand that.
Yes.
My question was
Long-term?
specifically, for the July 1st position, because I think one of the things that we found out is that Mr. DeVito was probably underpaid. I mean, he's taking a significant increase. I believe it's close to 20%. So I think given the fact that we've got limited financial and business background, both at the administrative level of the schools and on the board itself, I would really like you to consider that position really needs to be in probably the 150, 175 range. It's my opinion.
thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on the resolution items? That's your opinion too? Except nobody asked, okay?
I was hoping I wouldn't have to ask this question, to be honest with you. It's in reference to resolution item number 4, specifically the appointment of several assistant coaches and something I never had when I was in high school, a strength and conditioning coach. I sent out an email to Mr. Zara and several of you over the weekend pointing out that we had close to $400,000 in cuts for this current budget that directly impacted our classrooms, instructional positions, teachers, etc. How can we make $400,000 of cuts that directly affect our students and our classrooms? And then we sit here and we're going to pass a resolution that's going to hire a strength and conditioning coach at $5,200, 3 assistant cheerleading coaches at $4,000. I hope one of you has their whatever, take this off the agenda. I don't know how you can do that in good conscience.
Is there anything to address that?
If I may respond.
I'll sit.
If I may respond, regarding the classrooms, when we were doing, constructing, building the budget from last year to this year, there were initial cuts, but not one classroom teacher was eliminated. Our concern was some of the aides positions. Our concern was some of the basic skills positions, and as you probably recall, the gifted and talented program. The gifted and talented program was brought back. Those basic skills positions were brought back with stimulus money, with extraordinary aid, and the anticipation of some retirements. As far as a strength and conditioning coach, some years ago, we created a fitness center at the high school. And I'm very happy to say that there's probably 40 to maybe 45 young student athletes, male and female, in there every day. Certainly we need supervision. It's an important part of athletics today to prevent injuries and condition students. That is open 5 days a week, and also that individual works very closely with our athletic trainer on rehabilitation. We think I think, and my recommendation is that that position is critical to keep that weight room open, to keep our students properly and safely supervised. And also one of the concerns that we've always had over the years is to keep students out of private gyms, where we really have no supervision over who they're with and perhaps what they're offered. So in view of the educational program being sound regarding the limited number of cuts, in view of all of the benefits that occur in extracurricular activities, not just athletics, but clubs, and we work very hard to reinstate those clubs, the music program, the arts, the school and drama, we have to try to, we will continue to try to offer so many opportunities to so many of our students, regardless of their interests. And I respect your opinion, and I have to say that probably if that position was eliminated, not only would it be very detrimental, but we also have a lot of upset parents who think there's value there. My job is to make recommendations to the Board of Education to take care of all of our children, from gifted and talented to honors to AP to special education and every point in between. And this is one very small component of a very big program. And I think every one of these coaches represents an awful lot of hours, an awful lot of opportunity for students, and an opportunity not only to grow physically and emotionally and learn leadership skills, but work as a team. And I think those lessons are invaluable. That's all I can say about it.
Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the other thing we have to keep in mind is the board was very cognizant of the balancing academics and extracurricular and athletics. And in constructing the budget, we did cut $300,000 out of athletics and extracurricular activities, of which the brunt of it was borne by athletics. So there was significant amount of reduction in athletics, of which, and this has to fit within that budget for the athletics. So we were very conscious of it. And again, as Mr. Zara points out, that you have to balance those things.
I think we have to say, too, from a pragmatic standpoint, if we have a kid injured, hopefully not, in that weight room, and then we come to court and someone says, why didn't you have a qualified individual supervising these children? What are we going to say? We didn't think it was appropriate financially? I don't think that's going to work. Additionally, if you look at the cheerleading team, I mean, I've seen it for many years, and it's gone from waving pom-poms to really intricate athletic endeavors. And once again, if a child's to be injured, and we have to say that we didn't have somebody competent there to really give them proper instruction, I think we're going to be in a bad spot. So I think from a pragmatic standpoint, this is really economic, too.
Can you explain the cheerleaders again to the misunderstanding of assistant?
Years ago, when we were in need of cheerleading coaches, the high school principal approached 3 individuals who had a background and asked them to serve or to apply for the position. And they did so under the agreement that there would be no head coach, that there would be 3 co-coaches. So rather than 1 head coach's salary and 2 assistant coaches' salaries, they all agreed to take 3 assistant coaches' salaries. I was very skeptical, but so far it has worked over several seasons, both fall and winter. And the squad is very large. There is a supervision issue, and as Mr. Sutter was mentioning, it involves an awful lot of tumbling and throws and lifts and gymnastics. And again, supervision is critical. Not only coaching skills, but also the supervision of the athletes. And they don't not only cheer, but they're also involved in competitions.
One more question. So we do have the funds for the hiring of these coaches?
Yes.
this and some other thoughts on it, is that education transcends the four walls of the classroom. I wasn't such a big sports guy in high school, but I had children who were, and it was on the football fields and in the bands and cheerleading where they learned about teamwork and character, where they learned about leadership, as the superintendent said, where they learned about responsibility. So I kind of look at this as a investment, if you will, in education, and it's something that certainly drives me to support this. Also, what drives me to support it is I'm certainly satisfied with the explanation that the superintendent gave us, because, Mr. Russo, I too had questions, and I accept his expertise as well as my thoughts on education transcending the four walls of a classroom, but certainly I respect your opinion on this.
Anyone else? Neither here, the citizens on the resolution. Mr. Ron, would you move resolutions 1 through 4, please?
Yes, Mr. President. I'd like to move resolutions 1 through 4 as listed. I so move.
Second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Copeland, any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
That's it.
Mr.
I just
Cook,
want,
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
just want for the record that I have to abstain on the boys' head basketball coach.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Mascartola.
Yes.
Mr. Riley.
Yes, I'm all set for the basketball coach, which pursuant to law I have to recuse myself from.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Mrs. Russo.
Yes on the first three, no on number 4.
Yes, on the first three, no on number 4.
Mr. Sauter.
Yes.
Mrs. Pizzato.
Yes, on the first three and no on number 4.
Dr. Sal.
Yes. In this section, we allow questions and comments on all school-related matters. Again, regulations allow for 30 minutes. Again, each person shall be limited to 3 minutes. We ask you to try to stay within this requirement. All statements should be directed to the chair, and you can hear a second time only after everyone who wants to be heard on the matter has had the opportunity. Any other hearing citizens or comments?
Terry Quirk, 45 Hampton Place, President and spokesperson of the Nutley Parent Advocacy Network. First of all, NPM would like to extend our best wishes to you, Mr. DeVita. We will miss you, and it's really our loss, Cohen's game. So we really wish you the best. Okay, the reason why I'm here tonight is because of something that happened, I guess at our last meeting here. I remember standing in front of you and discussing a student from the high school that was not receiving services. And I remember Mr. Rogers speaking about the IS&S program, the in-school suspension program. Okay, that was my recollection of what had happened. Then I go home and I get my Nutley Journal for the week, and I read the first page where it says detention pays, and that the district weighs option to charge students for cost of punishment. Well, knowing the law and knowing what can be done and what cannot be done, basically I was not pleased by hearing this, because it is my understanding that a school district must provide a free and appropriate education for all their students. They cannot charge parents for disciplinary measures. It is the responsibility of the school district to provide those measures. And they cannot charge these people. So, of course, I was very, very upset, which caused me to contact Roman, because this was his article, and I had to give my own statement regarding the law, regarding the fact that this was unconstitutional, and that there has to be another way to handle situations with children or students who are repeated offenders. okay? One of the problems that I've said prior to this meeting is that there are no services going on over there. There is very limited behavior modification programs, or nothing in terms of that. There's nothing in terms of in-school counseling. There are no what is known as IR&S services or programs, or actually they're meetings that they will meet weekly to discuss children who are in need or students who are in need. That's not happening. So it was my understanding that something was going to be done. And in fact, last year at this time, I thought we were going to, or the district was considering a new alternative school in Bloomfield. I must be losing my mind. However, this prompted me to make a statement to Roman, so that the public understands that they cannot be charged. And it also caused me to contact NPN's attorney to find out exactly what our legal, what the legal ramifications of this would be. And he told me that if it goes into policy, he will take this case and he'll have to file it in court because it is a violation of the student's constitutional rights. So I would appreciate if you can please reconsider and understand that there's other ways to handle students who are repeated offenders. And it is not, like I said, not permitted to contact or to charge parents for services. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
No comment on it? Someone tell me what she was talking about?
Excuse me.
Come on.
I'm serious.
No, what, don't you know what I was talking
I'm
about?
asking-
It's only 2 minutes.
Let's do
I'm
this
asking the
orderly.
president a question.
Let's do this orderly.
Okay.
What is it that you don't understand?
I'm questioning what she's requiring, that we're voting or we're doing something about detention. I
Where
don't
I
know
think-
that we are.
Where I think the breakdown in communication occurred is we are looking very preliminarily at charging for detention. We have no intention of looking at the in-school suspension program. I believe the article alludes to the fact that we're going to look at punishment across the board. Of course, anything we do is going to need to exclude or make considerations for students who have behavioral problems or special IEPs. That was never the intention to be part of this. Very preliminarily looking at charging habitual offenders for detention, which is after school that we have to pay teachers a stipend.
But when you say we, is there a
The
committee
board,
that's doing that?
The district. The
Okay.
district.
I just don't remember us discussing.
No, we never got that far.
Okay, so that's why I'm questioning how this
Okay.
is in the paper and how, I know nothing we're talking about.
No, it was
That's
a
what I'm
very
questioning.
early preliminary discussion. It hasn't even gotten to the level of,
I got you, that's what I'm questioning, because we're standing there not knowing
I understand,
what's
thank
going
you.
on here.
Can I just say one thing? Also, and I forgot, and you did say that, Mrs. Ferraro right here reminded me of something. Actually, there was a survey on Channel 12 about Nutley is considering this. I'm confused as to why this is even being considered if it's not something that you can legally do. Okay, that's just my take, Mr. President, I'm sorry.
I agree with you that, we're not going to do something that we're prohibited by law from doing.
Okay.
So, there was a survey taken. They might have asked us, some of us, what we thought about it. We haven't decided to consider it. We haven't got a resolution on the board. We haven't got a recommendation from the superintendent on this. It was a very preliminary study. And if you look at on Channel 12, there are many other districts throughout the state that are considering this. According to the data from Channel 12, this is a very preliminary study.
So NPM would be, we would love to be part of any kinds of studies that we would love to give our input as well as to things like this and to offer you other ways to go. Please, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, I have to say, as part of that policy committee, I would love to hear these alternatives. Really?
Well, that Mr. Rogers has had an open invitation to people to attend the policy meeting, to give input and to see what we're doing, so just take him up on his invitation, and everybody's informed, and that's the best way it works. Yeah, well,
You see, I don't know about others, but my intent is not to make punishment more severe. My intent is to try to elicit help from parents and anybody else to make it so that we don't have to issue as much punishment. That's the objective.
Right.
not to punish people.
Charge them.
We would like to do, well, whatever is alternative would be good too, if it would be effective in reducing the need to punish kids for repeated infractions.
But those would be
Bottom line.
candidates to go to your alternative school in Bloomfield. Is that not happening?
Maybe
Should
true.
that not be
The
happening? Mr. Zara?
superintendent from Bloomfield is leaving,
Okay.
and we are waiting for an appointment of an interim superintendent to continue that conversation.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mike Russo, 11 Main Street. Mr. President, I'd like to continue the somewhat lively discussion we had at the last meeting regarding the budget, and specifically how the new teacher's contract is going to affect the budget, not necessarily this year, because I understand that we budgeted for, and this was a great negotiating tool, by the way. I'm sure the teachers knew that we budgeted for a 4% increase. That was great. My specific concerns that I brought up at the last meeting, and I know Mr. Cooker was part of the negotiating committee, but was not at the last meeting. I still have concerns, and I still have questions regarding the financial side of it. Just looking at the numbers, a balance sheet has to balance. If you increase your revenues, then you can increase your expenses. If you don't increase your revenues and you commit to a large expense increase, specifically a line item for the teacher salaries of $1 million, and probably benefits also going up $1 million. My question at the last meeting that I still don't think was answered is, worst case scenario, if we don't get a budget approved for next year and the year after that shows us an increase in our revenues, how are we going to balance our balance sheet without, by committing to $1 million increase? I just don't understand how we're going to address that in years 2 and 3. Hopefully this came up during the negotiations. Is it appropriate for me to ask Mr. Cook there?
Yeah,
Comment on
I'll defer to Mr. Cook. He was on negotiations committee. I was there. I'm sure Mr. DeVita can help him out. But let me just answer your worst case scenario question. Worst case scenario, the only option we have, and I said this at the last meeting, would be to reduce our forces. It would be a reduction in force where we have to let people go. That's the only tool we have at our disposal. And of course, that's the last thing anybody wants to do, because as we said before, when we were talking, can you treat this like a business? You can't. When you return to the classroom, I'm not talking about his office. His office has to be run like a business. That's not what I'm referring to.
I understand.
When we refer to the classroom, you can't just say we're going to put out less product or we're going to put out less expensive product in order to save money. We can't do that in education. So your doomsday scenario would just mean we have to get along with less staff across the board, not just teachers. That's the only tool we have. But Mr. Cook, if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think that your question, there's 2 components of the compensation that we negotiated. One was the salary increase, and everybody's heard the numbers, 3.9, 4, and 4.1%. They may not have heard that the longevity was frozen, so that's a component of compensation. So the percentage isn't going to be quite as high as that if you freeze a component of compensation. And the other is the health benefits, where we negotiated out some concessions on the benefits. We'll get to that in a second. The way I like to look at the compensation, the 3.9, 4, 4.1, is it includes 2 pieces. One is the steps, which is the progression of the teachers through the scale. And that's worth a little excess of 2%. And what verifies that a little bit is that if you look at the teachers who are at the top of the scale, and what are they going to get? They're in their that salary, that line on the scale is going about 2%. And if you factor in longevity, it's probably actually a little less than 2%. So the across the board increase is 2%. Now the other is the steps as they go through. Just like in any other profession, you go through levels and you get increases. And there, the amount that's going to be realized of that $1 million, and it's about half of it, it's about $500,000, is a function of what happens to the number of teachers at the top versus at the bottom. So as teachers retire, you replace a $100,000 teacher with a $50,000, just to make life easy. And you know, with 350 teachers, on average, you're going to get, you should get at least 10 a year on average. Now, you're not necessarily going to get them in any particular year. We don't know who's going to retire and not going to retire. In fact, we have one tonight. We approved one. So they come at certain points of time, and so to say that it's going to cost us $1 million in salary increases, I think that is speculating that zero retirements. That the assumption is that there's going to be zero retirements. I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, even in the worst case economic scenario, there will be retirements. I mean,
Do you know how many we had this year?
Well, I can speak to that. We've averaged about 10 to 15 for the 3 or 4 years that I've been in this position. But we're starting to see that change. We had one teacher who's leaving us at the end of December, one who's leaving us, it's in the agenda tonight, January 1st. Those people are not being replaced, those 2 people. And we planned for that. We had some indication. We have a vice principal at the high school who's retiring, and that position is going to be downgraded from a vice principal in charge of guidance to a lead guidance counselor. And we think we can do that effectively without reducing any services. So we're really trying to be very mindful as these changes come. I think we're going to see a handful, a good number. I'm hoping maybe 10 for next year. There's some indications from people now.
I think the point, though, is that on average, we've had 10 to 15 over that 3-year period. And I know the first year I was on board, we had a retirement dinner for the teachers, and there was far in excess of that. There was a lot in that first year that I was on board. So it could come in clusters. And this year, you know, maybe we'll get 5 or something, and that's in the worst of economic times. We still going to get a certain number. So, you know, are we going to get to 10? I don't know. But are we going to get 0? I don't think so. So I don't know how much of that means. But in the budget process, we've got to have contingencies. You know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, you know, we've got to have contingencies if it doesn't happen. But I think that on average, it's safe to assume that there's going to be 10. As you know, if you got 350, again, if you have 350, if they spend 35 years in the school system, now they're not uniformly distributed by age, I'm sure, that, you know, based on the demographics. But comes a time they got to retire. They're going to retire. They will retire, or their mortality rate will catch up to. We'll get 10 a year.
Well, my question is still, you're still not answering my question.
No, but
worst case scenario. Worst case scenario. I've always been taught to look at that. The worst case scenario.
Worst case would be 0.
We have 0 retirements. We don't get a budget passed, so our revenues don't go up. I'm just saying, it is a possibility. It's a worst case scenario that we have to look at.
And the Finance Committee is conscious of this. In fact, we're meeting this Thursday. We met last month to set some parameters and the process and guidelines and how we're going to proceed. And this Thursday, we're meeting again. We're going to have the auditor will be there, so we'll review the final numbers for the previous fiscal year, which I still don't know. I haven't seen it, so I don't know what the answer is, where we are from how we wound up. We're going to take another look at this year to see if we need to come up with any contingency plans to make sure we make budget. And we're going to start working on contingency plans for the next fiscal year as to the various scenarios, what do we have to do? And so we have to be prepared.
And one of those scenarios
One of them will be
no increase on budget.
Well, there's
0
more
retirements,
it's more
and
complicated,
looking at a $1 million increase.
and the state aid being cut.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. I mean, I don't know what's going to
Especially
happen,
with the recent
but
election.
it is, you know, as you know in business that you got to be prepared. Now you don't. Now, do you construct a budget around the worst case? The answer is no. To me, you always put it around the best guess of what's going to happen. And that's what it should be, and then you have contingency planning for the worst case. So, and that's the way we're going to proceed with the Finance Committee, as far as I'm, you know, concerned.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope
And
the impact
to
on
the
it is
other,
to improve.
right, and the other piece of the puzzle is on the healthcare. We got some increases in deductible, increments of the way we reimburse non-participating facilities, and we have some incentive for people to move out of traditional into the managed care program, and all that's worth about 1% of salary. So that comes, so that would come out of that number, so.
1% of salary, what would the
1%,
dollar amount?
about 250,000, it's about 250,000,
Okay.
that stuff is worth, so it's about worth about 1%. So, the base salary is up 2, the 1 we got back, that gives us 1, and then the question is what's gonna happen to the other 2%, which is the steps and the rollover of the personnel.
So as far as the benefits go, the $1 million increase that I saw from last year to this year, I'm just going by the budget that I saw, the one, basically was $1 million. You're saying that might be, best case scenario, that $1 million increase is only going to be a $750,000 increase.
Correct.
Okay, so best case, so you're.
Well, I don't know what again, we have to look at what's our claim experience running, how's it running today? And that's going to be what's going to dictate the increases next year. Part of the increase that we got this year, which was the 18% increase this year, was we had some catastrophic claims in the previous year, and we are, and we're paying the price rate. And they opted to spread that over a couple of years. So we had that. So this year we're paying the price for the previous. So if our claim experience runs well, it will probably come in less than the 18% rate. That was worth about 6%. So the base increase this year was about 12%, not the 18%. So again, it's more complicated as to where we're really going, and we have to take a hard look at all these numbers. We got to get our claim experience and see where we might wind up with. Whether we have to negotiate with the carrier or put it out the bid for another carrier, it's just a cost.
So just to summarize, best case scenario then is $1 million salary increase, maybe $500,000 increase. So best case scenario, we've committed to a $1.5 million increase in our expenses, not knowing if our revenues are going to increase next year. That's the bottom line, correct? Okay, thank you.
But I think in the best case scenario has the there's a 4% cap, and we go up 4% on the real estate, the part that comes through real estate taxes, and that the state stays flat, it doesn't go up, and we don't lose anything. So it's a little more complicated.
Yeah, this will not answer your question about budgetary problems, but I cut this out of the paper in anticipation of the fact that there might be some questions about the contract that we just ratified. And the article is about the shortage of physics teachers, and of course, my attention being an ex-physics teacher. But what it says here, for example, is at Montclair State, 955 prospective teachers in 207, 208, one was certified to teach physical science. It says here that in the college in New Jersey, 40 physics teachers in the last 12 years. So what I'm trying to get at is, I think, my opinion anyway, the reason that we had to provide a reasonable contract to these people so that we can continue to employ people that we need in the sciences, in math, in languages, and continue to keep the people that we have. Without a reasonable contract, we're not going to get people. And it's going to be certainly a detriment to our students without having the people that are qualified to teach these subject areas. So as I say, that doesn't answer your question about budgetary problems, but hopefully it answers your question as to why we voted for the contract that we did. In my case, anyway.
It's a little bit of a follow-up to what Walt just said. I think that the other consideration when you're negotiating is what happens if you come to a stalemate and you don't go forward. What's the process? And there is a process in the education where there's a discovery, and ultimately you wind up in arbitration. And then you got to look at what has been given out by arbitrators in recent history. And we negotiated a more favorable contract than what they've been given. So that's the other piece of the puzzle. There's another piece of the puzzle. It's a complicated thing, and you just can't focus on. If you focus on one, you might get lost. You don't see the forest for the trees.
Favorable for us.
Yes, more favorable for us.
Make that clear.
It's for the board.
Okay.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
I have an easy one. Can you just give us an update on where we are with the website?
Yeah, I went to RFPs. The date for that closes on Friday. At that time, we'll look at what we have, and we'll make a decision.
Joseph Ivaney, 4 Garden Place. I have a couple of questions. One, first of all, I appreciate your explanation, and thank you. I understood when we voted on the budget, we couldn't put any slides up, we couldn't do any explaining because of the memorandum of understanding. Now, I apologize, it wasn't the last meeting. My understanding, we didn't have a presentation then either. So we seem to spend an awful lot of time over the same facts and circumstances, and I think, Dr. Casale, you talked about transparency when you came into your position, and my question to the board is, why can't we have a presentation quickly on something like that? I know there's a lot of assumptions, et cetera. You know, explain it perhaps once, and then cut off some of the tail of the unending questions that we can go on. I think it's a little easier for people to understand it.
I don't see a problem with that. We can put something together.
I think that would be the easiest way, because we're going to get into the assumptions on healthcare, costs, et cetera. And I think, I don't know how long the presentation would be. I think if we cover that once, I think, you know, with the...
We'll certainly do that, and we will certainly do it before Mr. DeVita.
That's part of my appreciation. But I think that would be, the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, that's...
Because, frankly, I know we talked about last time how important teachers are. I think there's an underlying feeling that if you don't put the cards on the table, I think it diminishes the way they're viewed, and I don't think that's appropriate. If you want to be fair to them, you've got a contract that's in place, it's been negotiated, put your cards on the
It's a
table,
public document.
you put all the facts out there.
Prior to
I think that's the appropriate way to
Yeah,
go
I
about
agree.
it.
I agree 100%. We can do PowerPoint, it's not a problem at all. It's prior to us voting on it, was a public document. Now it is. So that's very reasonable.
And for the record, I work with 2 other people that are boards of education in New Jersey. They don't sign such a memorandum of understanding. They sign a confidentiality agreement, but at the board, they're allowed to discuss some of the variables that are in there. So I think you want to consider that before you sign your 3 years from now, we go for our next contract. And then my last question, if I'm not holding it up, could I hear from Mrs. Russo and Mr. Sposato why they voted no on Section 4?
They're comfortable.
If you don't, would you ask them? That's about
In that
right.
case, I would have no problem answering. I'm not against athletics, I'm actually for it, but I do have trouble spending money. I'm still not 100% sure that we're in such great financial shape. I know I asked a question, I got an answer. But I'm still not positive that that's the facts. Until I get the facts and know exactly what it is, I'm not going to really be looking to spend money on something that I don't believe is as important as education. I mean, I'm a sports person, but we made some statements regarding the contract for next year and how tough it's going to be and trying to meet our cap and everything that we're going to come across. And I think that the direction we may be heading without the funding that we're going to be getting is going to be, we're going to start having some troubles in sports. We're going to start paying to play sports in Nutley soon. And, and that's something that I think that's, I know we're talking about paying for detention. I think you can be paying for sports because I think this money that we're giving out, I think I still agree with stand behind my decision for the no vote for the teacher's contract because I don't think we had the money to give. And time will tell, and we'll see where we get in next year. So, Debbie?
I have to say, I concur with my fellow board member. Until we get a better grasp on the financial situation, I have to vote no.
Okay. Fine. One last question. We talked about periodic updates on the budget. Is that still your plan?
Yes, as Mr. Cook said, we're meeting a second time. We're meeting with the auditor on the year-end report Thursday, so we'll have more information to give you.
Do you have any frequency at which, how often do you think you'd give an update on the budget?
Well, we meet twice a month, so I would imagine, depending on how many budget meetings we have in between each meeting, we may have something for you.
Okay.
The finance committee will be finance and budget meeting at least once a month,
But I guess for purposes of discussing it at a public forum with the public, and is that something we could possibly put a slide together or hand out?
Well, yeah, and don't forget, with the new website, once we get that squared away, it'll be much easier to get information out there in between meetings, so you don't have to come here and see it for the first time. You can see it and come prepared to ask a question or have a comment, much like we do now with the resolutions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dr. Casale, Joe, this is the gentleman I was speaking to you tonight about, Mr. Iannini. In fact, you're going to save me an email fee. He's a good guy. He's really stepped up. He's been talking to me about getting involved and volunteering, and I don't want to put people off, as you don't, when they step up and want to lend their expertise. The guy's got a lot of wealth of knowledge regarding a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, so can we somehow start to move in that direction with the Budget and Finance
Once
Committee?
we get more structure to what we're going to be doing with budget, then we're going to go back to that volunteer thing with respect to budget. Are you a certified PA?
No. I'm a CPA and a CFA, but not a...
Did you sit around for
I-
the board?
No, sir, I'm not. I've audited...
There's a rumor,
I've
where
audited...
this is going.
No, I've audited public institutions.
Maybe you could help us out with
Absolutely,
church.
yeah.
I mean, he's got the knowledge and the talent.
Yeah, and again, coming from our standpoint, except, Jim has his background in business, Tommy runs his own business. Some of us up here don't even know the questions to ask all the time. So that's where, once we get some structure, we have some meetings, someone like yourself could help us steer the process. So that's not a problem at all, that's our intention.
I think the purpose is, my feeling is if we're doing things appropriately and we share that with the public, there's going to be a debate, you're not going to be 100% on one side or the other. But if you share it, I think it makes it clear. And I think that's what your intent is, and that's what I'm at least hearing from you. But without having to feel like you've got to pull out every piece, because I think then something's going to get in the website, the paper, whatever, to be misquoted, and I think well, in other towns it may probably waste some valuable time, but that's why I'm important. Thank you very much.
Go, thanks, I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Anyone else? So we don't want to close this portion of the meeting. Okay, see you on, I guess I have a motion to adjourn.
Can I make one statement before we adjourn?
Absolutely.
Great. I have a lot of time to read the paper, I'm retired. So I have another article here about Essex County school violence, and I think we did pretty good. It looks like we had 11 incidences out of 1,147 in the county, and it was one of the lowest in the county. As a matter of fact, if I read this correctly, it was the lowest of all K through 12 schools. And I have to, compliment the school system on this. Now, I know that the Nutley Sun poo-pooed it because they chose to find the fact that it wasn't done correctly or whatever, but I still think, in light of the fact that we are the lowest out of all K through 12 schools, that's quite a compliment. I appreciate it.
I just, looking through the channels, I happen to notice on FiOS, we now have Nutley Board of Ed as a station on there. We're equivalent to Channel 77, I think.
Really?
Mr. Sauter's here, probably from him raising this issue many months ago, got us to where it's on.
What channel?
43?
42.
42.
42. What? 42? Is that high definition? Channel 42. Oh, good.
I got to say,
Well, that's interesting, because I lost Channel 77, and I've been fighting cancer to get it back. It's true, I lost it. Thanks, Jim. A couple of, I always like to be the bearer of good news. We have some real neat achievements in this district that we don't have the opportunity at times to share with the public, but I want to share a few with you, especially from a couple of students. And this is Aaron. If we could get these students here at one point, I think it would be terrific. And if we did already, please refresh my memory. There's a student named Anthony Cifelli, who was a 100-match winner in wrestling. I think that's a great achievement. This I was fascinated over. A student named Glenn Cox, the first perfect bowling game in Nutley High School history. I mean, that's a heck of an achievement. Then we had in Radcliffe, where I'm the PTO board rep, Miss Gail Kahn and Mr. Barines wrote a book. It's called A Different Bar. I think writing a book is a great achievement and something that I'd like to recognize them here at the board meeting. And then I had the pleasure of attending the Academy of Performing Arts over at the high school a few weeks ago, and I was absolutely impressed over the achievements of these students who are committing and dedicating their souls and their beings to music and art. So these are some of the achievements we never hear about, or we hear about not too much. And if we could get some of these students here with their teachers, et cetera, and make presentations, I think that'd be a neat thing. Thank you.
I don't want to denigrate Monte Sabella's record, but I think Montez did better, and I think maybe Nico did better than Montez.
Okay, this is, if you got
We
anything
gotta
else,
get, Joe and I, we gotta get those guys in there too.
put them all in there, that's great.
If I may give just an update on the H1N1, interesting, and this is as of this morning. I know I've reported to the public and the board, we have everything in place, we have permission forms, we have the logistics of offering the vaccine at the high school and the middle school for high school and middle school children. We have hours designated after school for parents and children. There's only one problem, we don't have a vaccine. And that's at, I believe, at the state and federal level, and I just want to report that, that we are ready. And as soon as we are notified that that vaccine is available through the health department, we will be getting that out to all of you. But right now, there is no vaccine. Nutley received 60 doses, and that's not going to go very far. So I just wanted to give you an update. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Any comments before?
I had a quick comment. Last meeting, I questioned recycling at all the schools, and I did read that Commissioner Scarpelli assured us that all of the schools have recycling bins, so I'd like to thank Commissioner Scarpelli for taking care of that for us.
I believe there was a picture of Mr. Colicchio with the cardboard recycling. And apparently that's really generating an awful lot of weight, the cardboard being collected in the schools.
Anyone else? Seeing none, motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor?